signed, you talked a lot about how you quickly wanted to get to work, forming relationships with the pitchers, making calls, watching videos, et cetera. Now that you're, on the ground and going to, obviously start to get to actually catch these guys, side sessions, bullpen sessions, how does that communication, that preparation, I guess, change for you versus what you've been doing?
Well, I think the biggest thing is, as much as I want to talk to guys, as much as I want to get to know somebody personally, all you can do to really get to know somebody is that experience of catching someone. So that means catching as many bullpens, as many sides as I can, catching them in game situations, whatever it may be. You can watch as much video as you want, you can talk as much as you want, but at the end of the day, you have to get that experience of actually being on the field together, and so that's going to be the challenge of spring, especially during times of COVID. Just it's tough to be around each other all the time, with all the regulations and protocols in place, and so finding out a way to overcome those challenges of being able to be together as much as possible. That's our goal for the next several weeks.
Next question comes from Tim Healy from Newsday.
Hey, James, similarly to that, if it were a normal world right now, like say a couple of years ago when you changed teams and joined Chicago, what would you do differently to get to know your new pitching staff? Yeah, in a pre-COVID world, there'd be a lot more, going out to eat with guys, having guys over to the house to if they've got families, come hang out with my family, just to kind of do life together, and be away from the game of baseball per se. So that is a challenge in itself, that our time is limited together. So thankfully it's 2021 and we have cell phones and FaceTime and Zoom and all that great stuff that's hopefully going to be able to make up for the lack of actually being able to do things away from the field. Sure. And when did you arrive in Port St. Lucie, and who have you been able to catch so far, maybe bullpen sessions wise?
Yeah, so with the protocols and having to do intake testing, we actually haven't been able to be on the field together, as a unit. So I've only been on the field one day, and it was actually just with Nimmo and McNeil playing a little catch and hitting a little bit. So tomorrow will be our first day as a pitcher catcher combo on the field.
Got it. Thank you very much.
Next question comes from Disha Thozar from the Daily News.
Hey, James, you mentioned, in a normal world, you would be going out to eat with some of these guys to get to know them better. Just similarly, what are some of the weirdest or toughest protocols that you're facing right now that might be giving you a tougher time to get to know them?
Yeah, just the things away from the field that the regulations and protocols in place make it tough, but also at the field. Nobody likes to wear a mask and sit and talk, be 6 feet away from each other, trying to talk things through, or, the video room is a lot more, monitored and limited in a sense. So there's just a lot of different things that I guess we took for granted, pre-COVID, where, you could just walk into the video room at any time of the day and sit down and get on a computer and watch film with, 3 or 4 guys around a one screen. So that's one of the biggest things is just how we have to be spaced, and they don't want guys hovering around each other and being in the same location for too long without being spaced out. So there's going to be a lot more one-on-one type things, and hopefully we can figure out ways to do it efficiently.
Right, and then after playing in the AL Central for so many years, and taking a look at the tough teams in the NL East now, just what do you think of the division as a whole, and how do the Mets fit into that?
Yeah, the NL East is no joke. You look at the types of players on every team, and then the teams that have been assembled. It's a very tough division, and I really like our team here. I think that the moves that were made this offseason to pair with what was already here in house. I think exciting times are ahead, and I really look forward to competing with all my new teammates.
Thanks.
Next question is from Justin Toscano from The Record.
Hey, James, you talked a little bit earlier just about how you've got to eventually catch a guy to truly learn him, build that relationship. But after the Mets signed you in the offseason, what was your routine like to get to study those guys over film and know them as much as possible before you got to Port St. Lucie?
Yeah, so it started with just getting access to video of everybody, and then getting to do my own little bit of studying, and then it really went to the next level. Had several Zoom calls with Hef, the pitching coach, and Brian Schneider, the catching guy, and just getting their opinions and hearing what they have to say about each guy, and that way when we show up here, now that we're here, I'm not asking them questions. I've already picked their brain, and I already kind of have that foundation of what each guy has, what each guy likes to do, maybe some key words that they need or that they like, different things like that. That way, I'm already prepared and not trying to do too much at one time.
And heading into camp, what do you think is this team's greatest strength?
There's a lot of strengths. Our rotation, I really like our rotation. I think you look from top to bottom, there's a lot of strengths. Our lineup, there's a lot of depth there. I don't want to pick out one particular thing as being a strength. I think this club really honestly is built to do a lot of things really well.
Thank you.
Next question is from Tim Britton from The Athletic.
Hey, James. Going off of Disha's question about being in the AL Central, what was your reaction when you saw the Mets make the trade with Cleveland for Francisco Lindor and Carlos Carrasco? What's been like going up against those guys for as long as you have, and now being in the same clubhouse as them?
Well, first and foremost, just the respect that I have for both of them. Not just as players, but also as individuals. Playing against them, and then also hearing from their teammates. They're phenomenal, individuals, phenomenal human beings, and great teammates. So hearing the news that we trade for them, I was obviously very excited to be able to be on the same team as them, but also no longer have to face Carlos Carrasco, and no longer have to try and figure out how to get Lindor out. I get to sit back and enjoy watching the show. That was really exciting.
In 6 years of trying, did you figure out a way to get Lindor out as a catcher?
Every time I thought I figured it out, he found a way to beat us. He's that's one of the things that's special about him is there's elite players in this game, and he's one of them, and you can't keep getting them out the same way. They make adjustments, and he's very good at doing that. And like I said, I'm very glad I don't have to try and figure out how to get him out now.
Thanks.
Mike Puma from the New York Post is next.
Hey, James, you've obviously caught some very good pitchers with Detroit, the White Sox. You're going to have Jacob deGrom here, a guy who's won a couple of Cy Young Awards. I'm wondering, is there a certain pressure that'll come with catching a guy like that, given how much every time he pitches, he's under the microscope, and one run's a big deal, one pitch is a big deal?
Yeah, I think that Jake is a phenomenal pitcher. I think that he's going to rank up there with some of the best that I've ever caught, and I think that the pressure really for me is to get onto his page. He's a guy that has found success and sustained success at that. So it's my job to come in and figure out how I can make him happy, figure out how to, best make him who he is. He's not a guy that, I'm going to come in and try and change or try and do something different with. It's a guy that I need to get on his page. And, the best way to do that is just to catch him and get to know him. And, I'm really looking forward to learning from him as well, because he's obviously mastered a craft that few can master.
What have your interactions, if any, been with him to this point?
Yeah, so we communicated a little bit in the off season, and we actually had some good conversations today. Just kind of talking about what he likes to do, what his approach is, and really just like I said, me trying to get down his page means I'm going to ask him a lot of questions, probably to the point where he gets annoyed by it. because I know the little bit that I have dealt with him, I know he's kind of a no funny business type guy. So I'm sure my questions will eventually annoy him, but it's just going to be me trying to figure him out.
Thank you.
Next question is from Tyler Kepner from the New York Times.
Hi, James. I just want to ask you about the team around you. The Mets have made a lot of real depth moves in recent days, bringing in Pilar and Jonathan Villar and Almora and some pitchers with some names. Maybe not like the $150 million types, but sort of solid guys all around. What do you think about the makeup of a team like that's kind of has a lot of depth, but maybe didn't go get 5 huge free agents?
I think depth is really important. I think that the teams that have the most success in baseball oftentimes have the most depth. You look at teams across, in the past that have had, deep playoff runs and World Series runs. It's kind of when one guy goes down, it's a next man up type scenario. The teams that starting lineups are really good and maybe depth not so good. It's one injury away from falling too far back in the standings to be able to make up ground. So I think depth is really important. And honestly, I really like the moves that the Mets have made with those depth pieces. I think that at the end of the day, a great team does a lot of little things well, and I think that the pieces that have been put in place here are guys that can do a lot of the little things in the game well.
Thank you.
Next question is from Jake Steiner from the Associated Press.
Hey, James. You guys are obviously coming off a 60-game season that had its share of difficulties with the protocols, with the schedule variants, a lot of things that I imagine mentally were pretty taxing in addition to the physical stuff. My question is kind of twofold. I'm just wondering, to what extent was last season difficult and taxing compared to maybe what a regular standard season feels like? And are you nervous, or how do you feel about the idea of stretching that over 162 games, and what do you think are going to be the things you can do as an individual and as a team to kind of navigate that?
Yes, I do think that there's a lot of different stresses that went into last year. One thing 2021 has that 2020 didn't is pretty much everyone's been through the protocols. Everyone's kind of figured out, what makes them work under these types of conditions. The difference, like you said, is going from 60 games to 162. Well, in the 60 games, there's a lot of question marks. There's a lot of uncertainties, leading up to the spring training 2.0, summer camp, whatever you want to call it. Guys were sitting at home wondering if, how much they need to ramp up, how much they need to be hitting, nobody really knew anything. Whereas this year, guys have been able to prepare for spring training like it's a full 162. I don't know the impact that only playing 60 games and now jumping into 162 will have. I think that, only time will tell. No one's ever been through it. So from an innings standpoint for pitchers and games played standpoint for players, it's going to be up to guys to really take it upon themselves to, make sure they're doing the right things to keep their bodies healthy.
Next question is from Howard Megdal from Baseball Prospectus.
Thanks, and good morning, James. I'm curious if you could tell me, there's different people have different arguments about how many at-bats it takes, how many plate appearances, how many innings for a sample to be statistically significant. And I'm just wondering from you, from a player point of view, you obviously have seen your career take off and reach another level the last couple of years. Was there a moment where you felt both offensively and defensively like, all right, this is here to stay, this progress, this improvement? And also, do you look at the numbers and say, geez, I got to do it over a certain period of time for me to feel really secure in what I'm doing?
Yeah, well, my first answer to that is going to be everyone has a different journey. Everyone has a different path. In today's world, everyone wants, immediate results. Everyone wants the Mike Trouts, the Ronald Acuna's that from day one in the big leagues, they're superstars. But if you look back over the course of the history of the game, there's a lot of players that really didn't blossom into who they were until, 3, 4, 5 years into their career. I'll never forget my first year of pro ball. I was in high A. I got called up to double A at the All-Star break. And the first month of double A in my first year, I mean, for lack of better words, I got it handed to me. And I remember Al Kaline, who at the time was an assistant to the GM, came into town, and we were just sitting in the cage talking. And I remember him telling me that it would take well over 1,500 at-bats of minor league at-bats to figure out who I was. And then he said, and then it's going to take you another 1,500 at-bats in the big leagues to figure out who you are. He said, and then he said, and once you do figure out after those 1,500 at-bats, it's probably going to change at least one more time in your career. So, there's a Hall of Famer that's telling you, or, telling me as a young player, you can't fret over, 100 at-bats, 200 at-bats, a season's worth of at-bats, because it takes time. And, again, in today's world, everyone wants immediate results. So for me personally, it was the off season after I was non-tendered where I kind of went back to the drawing board and, long story short, I became content with who James McCann was. I stopped trying to be somebody that I wasn't, and, my career was able to take off from there. So I don't think there's a magic number for each individual. I think that everyone has their own journey and their own path. I don't think that I think there's a point where you figure out your routine, but I think the minute that you think you've got it all figured out is the minute your career is about to be over. So I don't think there's a time where you can really sit back and say, I've got it figured out. It's like riding a bike now. So I just don't think there's that point in anyone's career, honestly.
Next question is from Mark Healy from The Wave.
Good morning, James. The Mets, whenever they have an all-star catcher, success follows. And, whether it's Mike Piazza, whether it's Gary Carter, whether it's Jerry Grody, whether it's Paul LaDuca, players, catchers who have played a big role, the team's success usually follows. So there's going to be an inordinate amount of pressure with that. A lot of people are going to look at you as being the quarterback on the field. So with that in mind, how much of a role are you going to play in the with the pitchers, with the bullpen on a day-to-day basis? Will you be in the meetings? Will you be coordinating with the pitching coaches? And as well as the bullpen alignment, things like that. Is that something that you have done, and have you been told that that's what's going to be expected of you?
Yes, absolutely. That's first and foremost, my job is defense is number one priority. So that includes everything, obviously the receiving, the blocking, the throwing, all that you see, from a fan standpoint. But even more important is the pregame and pre-series planning. I feel like a catcher is the general on the field. They are the quarterback, like you said. They're the manager on the field. They're the pitching coach on the field. They kind of have to play all those types of roles, and that's 100% how I view myself. I tell my pitchers, I feel as much pain as they do when they don't have success, because it's as much my ERA as it is theirs. It's as much my wins and losses as it is theirs. So I'm right there in the trenches with them, and the pressure that the media or that the fans that may come with the territory, there's no pressure that anyone can put on me that I haven't already put on myself. That's kind of how I view my position and what my strengths are, and I hope to take advantage of that.
Next question is from Tim Britton from The Athletic.
Hey, James, I'm just wondering what life is like away from the facility in Port St. Lucie for you guys. Like, what are you allowed to do? How free are you in moving around town to try to grab something to eat or something?
I really don't know the truth to that answer. I know if I stay at my house, I'm okay. But no, I think some of the things that stick out to me are no indoor dining, no going to the bar, or the clubs, or stuff that is pretty simple to understand. I think going to the grocery, that type of stuff, that's part of daily life. You can't not do that. But really, it's just being smart. There's no reason to go to a bowling alley or even those innocent type things indoors. Really the way I view it is if I'm outside or I'm at my house, I'm doing okay. But I have a wife at home. I have 2 twin boys, 3-year-olds at home. I've got teammates that are high risk. So the way I view it is, I'm going to lay low and I'm okay with that.
Thanks.
Final question is from Mark Roseman from Sports Talk New York.
Hey, James. We know that you are a tireless worker and you're always striving to improve your defense. Your work with Jerry Narron documents that. But you mentioned Brian Schneider, and I don't know how many people realize this, but Brian is ranked 30th all-time Major League Baseball percentage court stealing, and that's one of your metrics that's very high. What do you hope to pick Brian's brain about to try and help you improve defensively this season?
Simply put, everything. I told him, we've talked on the phone. In my career, I never had a catching coach per se on a staff. In Detroit, I had a bullpen coach who was a catcher, but he was busy doing stuff with pitchers. So actually having that, and that's why I reached out to Jerry Narron and got in touch with him, was to seek that outside, the outside help. So I'm really looking forward to having a relationship with Brian and really picking his brain on everything from what he had success doing as a player to how he game planned to how he watched video, really everything. And that's that's something I try and do with every individual that I meet in the game, is try and take at least one thing from them that works for me, and hopefully it makes me better.
James, thank you very much for your time this morning.
All right, y'all take care.